Hello, this is the RPG Pundit, the final boss in Internet Shitlords. And today I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to be talking not about RPGs. I might mention a little something about RPGs at the end. But today I'm going to be talking about Watchmen. And the culture war and stuff like that. So if you only want to watch me talk about RPGs, I guess skip this one video. It's very rare for me to do this, but I wanted to do a video today, and this was the thing that was on my mind. That I can't stop feeling a bit pissed off about. So I'm going to talk about that. In terms of a programming note, I'm sorry that I haven't been able to do a live stream yesterday or today, but I guess I'll do one later on. I don't know when. But you're getting a video, so that's something, right? Also, for those of you who have been anticipating it, the RPG Pundit Presents Medieval Authentic Companion is still having trouble at the printers as of this filming. There's, for some reason, first there was some problem with drive-through according to my publisher, right? And then second, there was some problem with Lightning Source. The proofs didn't come out right, so we're waiting for a response about why they didn't come out right. And I guess it could still be some time, and trust me, no one is more pissed off about this than me. But I hope that you'll keep waiting patiently. I'm sorry for the delay. I trust that it'll be worth the wait when the time comes. Okay? Alright, well, let's get to it. Today, I wanted to talk about something I saw on Twitter, which was, I'm not watching the new Watchmen HBO series. I haven't, I refuse to participate in any of the expanded Watchmen media, right? Like the comic series that they made a few years ago, or the new one that they're doing now. I think it's called Doomsday Clock, or this HBO show. Because to me, all of them are going to be inferior garbage, and all it's going to do is drag down the perfect quality of the original comic. All right, so here's my very well-worn copy of Watchmen, and I've quite loved. To me, it's a work of literature. It's brilliant, and everybody who's tried to touch it since then has just shat themselves. Right? They've just done something stupid and useless, and the TV show is apparently no exception. Because I've seen, I've read a lot about this TV show. It was exactly what I was expecting it to be, right? I've commented a little in a previous video about it, that, the guy that created this is a chronically depressed loser who decided that he'd read a lot about, like, white privilege and black revolutionary culture, and decided that he would, even though he was in charge of Watchmen, what he was really going to do is a show about that, and not just in spite of Watchmen fans, but more specifically to fuck Watchmen fans. I'd like to teach them a lesson for being Watchmen fans, right? Because Watchmen isn't woke enough or something like that. So this is what it amounts to. Is you've got to remember, because here's the thing. Let me get back to my first point here. I was on Twitter. I saw an article in the Nerdist, which I guess is one of these SJW woke nerd culture spots that tries to propagandize and pretend as though all the woke SJW stuff in games and comics and movies is popular, when we all know it really isn't. And statistics show it really isn't. Watchmen is getting less viewers than Batwoman right now. And so, like, they were saying that apparently, and here's spoilers if any of you are watching. If you're watching, you probably deserve to be spoiled anyways. In the latest episode, which I guess aired this weekend or something, the character of Hooded Justice from the original Watchmen, he was one of the Minutemen. He was one of the first masked men in the 1930s or something like that, right? And whose identity was a complete mystery, is revealed. Finally it's revealed. Now we know officially this changes the Watchmen world, because it turns out that it's this black man who, doesn't fit the profile of the guy at all, doesn't belong as that character at all, but, we wanted him to be a black man, and that he became the Hooded Justice not because he was actually interested in fighting crime, but because he was opposing racists, and, I don't know what else. It's just the most ridiculous goddamn thing, right? And So my first response is this: no, that is not official anything. There's nothing that officially you can reveal to us, because what the HBO Watchmen is not real Watchmen, right? It doesn't have the approval of Alan Moore, who created Watchmen, and therefore what it would amount to be would be like fan fiction, right? Except that because the people making it clearly hate the original material and despise the people that enjoyed the original material, what it really is, it's more like anti-fan fiction, right? So if you imagine if somebody was doing fan fiction but in reverse, as like an intentional attack on a genre and its fans, right? That's what this Watchmen is. That's what so many of the SJW takes on things are. It's what their take on Charlie's Angel was, right? It's what Batwoman's take is. It's what all of these, so many things, Ghostbusters, so many of these things are basically people saying, we hated this thing, so we're going to take it away from you, we're going to ruin it, and then we're going to also laugh at you for it, right? And try to tell you that now you have to like this, right? It's obviously Star Wars is the biggest example. So it's like, if you imagine if I had taken, like with Dark Albion, and I had made it into a book that its whole intention was to really piss off people who were medievalists, to point out that the medieval world I could say that the medieval world was horrible in many respects, right? But instead to like take anything that is a fair analysis of the medieval world and just completely make a propagandistic mockery of it, right? All the nobles are evil, all the priests are corrupt, the peasants are always, Marxists who are getting ready to start the pre-revolution. And then I'll just change things. I write down, Richard Crookback won the Battle of Bosworth Field, and they're just make it into like some kind of nonsense, right? And I did that specifically to piss off medievalists, right? If I'd done that, that's what they've done with Watchmen would be like, right? And it's stupid in so many respects, and it's mainly stupid just because of what I've already said before, right? Watchmen is a nuanced and complex story that has been taken by these people and turned into a black and white story, like literally, right? It's about blacks against whites, right? That's the main purpose of Lindeloff's show, right? The guy that created the show. Which is really funny when you think about it, because one of the people Lindelof clearly despises is the character of Rorschach, right? And I do not particularly like Rorschach. I'm not one of these people who think, oh, Rorschach was great, wonderful, whatever, right? Like, Rorschach is meant to be a dislikable character. And I know that there's some people that just stupidly really liked him. They thought he was the coolest, most awesome thing because he's this ultra, badass fighting guy that just didn't care about any of the rules or whatever. Right? But the main thing that defines Rorschach is not that he was a white supremacist, which is what they've turned him into in the new series, which is just, ridiculous, just beyond stupidity. Rorschach wasn't a white supremacist. Rorschach was an objectivist, right? He was based on Steve Ditko's Mr. A, right? The sequel to The Question that he did after he left mainstream comics. Ditko was, of course, a fanatical objectivist, a libertarian follower of the philosophy of Ayn Rand that believes in strict rationality and in complete self-reliance to the point where selfishness is almost promoted as a virtue, and where, dependency on others, the welfare state, the government are all, questionable, if you'll pardon the pun. And most importantly, where there is no relativism, right? The famous saying of Ayn Rand's is A, right? A thing, this is this, right? There's no, everything is either black or it's white. It's good or it's bad. And that's what Rorschach is. He's got this mask with these black and white swirls that go around, but it's always either black or white, right? And the creator of the HBO show claims to hate Rorschach, but he's turned the whole show into Rorschach. Now it's all just black and white, right? There's none of this sophisticated level of complexity to it, Not to mention that he's destroyed by deciding to pretend that Hooded Justice was this black guy from Oklahoma. He's decided to completely destroy one of the elements, one of the subtle literary elements that Lindelof obviously missed, because, you know, SJWs don't actually get literature or subtlety or any of those things, which is about this cycle of never-ending repeating patterns that you see all over Watchmen, right? And so one example, in Watchmen, you know, they don't tell you that Hooded Justice was this strong man named, I think, Carl Mueller. But it's pretty obvious in in the appendices that this was who he was supposed to be, right? And in the original Watchmen, you have Hooded Justice meeting with or encountering, let's say, a very young comedian just as he's trying to rape the Silk Spectre. Hooded Justice beats the living crap out of the comedian. Right. Several years later, after Hooded Justice is alone and without allies, and is old, and what the comedian is at his at his prime, the comedian hunts him down and kills him. Right. Ostensibly because of like a government operation, because Mueller wasn't really a trusted guy. Right. One of the reasons he wasn't a trusted guy, by the way, is because Hooded Justice, i.e. Carl Mueller, had repeatedly made pro-Nazi statements, and when he was a member of the Minutemen, right, before the start of the Second World War. And so Lindelof wants us to believe that this, that a black guy in the 1930s would have gone around wearing what amounts to a variation of the KKK hood, right? And with a noose around the neck, and would have gone around saying statements about how great the Germans are, But yeah, so the comedian kills him much later on, like in 1955, I think it is, right? And then a few years later, the comedian ends up encountering Ozymandias for the first time, and beats the living crap out of Ozymandias. And years after that, the cycle repeats itself when Ozymandias ends up being the one that kills the comedian, chucking him out the window. When the comedian is old and alone and has no one to turn to, and has discovered Ozymandias' plan, and Ozymandias is at the peak of his, well, maybe not at the peak of his physical power already, because he's already like 40, but he's at the peak of his empire power for sure, and he's in incredible shape still, and an incredibly good fighter. So basically, Ozymandias, just like the comedian was ostensibly killing Hooded Justice as a government operation, but was actually doing it for revenge because he was once humiliated by him, Ozymandias is killing the comedian ostensibly to keep the plan a secret, but really because he always hated the comedian because the comedian had humiliated him, right? And so this is a cycle. It's a literary device, and these guys don't care about any of that sort of thing, right? Because they're writing anti-fan fiction. Their whole point is Watchmen is stupid, and we're going to make it better, right? We're not really making it better. We're going to say we're going to make it better, but what we're really going to do is absorb it into a vehicle for SJW propaganda while we insult anyone who liked the original, right? So we're going to make, they don't have Rorschach to put on there because he dies in Watchmen in the original, right? But but instead they decide just to make him the new symbol of the white supremacists, right? And like a terrorist, and so completely turning the moral, ethical subtleties of Alan Moore's original work into plain black and white, right? Rorschach was bad, right? That's it. That's all you need to know. Rorschach was bad. He's what the redneck white supremacists in Oklahoma follow. He's bad. And then with the other characters, the only two other characters that actually have shown up in the series, as far as I know, and correct me if I'm wrong here, because like I said, I'm not watching it, but I have been reading quite a bit about it, are the Silk Spectre, who, of course, because she was the only woman in the original Watchmen, what they're going to do now is make her be like the best one, right? And so she's now a badass FBI agent that can kick anyone's ass and is better than everyone. And she hates superheroes. That's super important. And she didn't stay together with Night Owl because, heterosexual romance and marriage is bad, right? So we don't want that, especially from white people, right? We don't want that to happen. We want to make it very clear to people that traditional relationships are bad, heterosexual marriage is bad. We want to get rid of that, so they don't even have Night Owl show up. I guess he's supposed to be in prison or something. I don't know if she put him in prison, probably, because she doesn't care about anything anymore, right? And she's just such a badass, which is stupid because actually Night Owl and the Silk Spectre were really the original heroes, so to say, of Watchmen, right? Like if there's any character you're actually meant to think of as likable, it's not Ozymandias or the comedian or Rorschach or Dr. Manhattan. It's Night Owl and the Silk Spectre who decide to, at the end, fall in love with being heroes again. At the end of Watchmen, they decide they're going to keep being heroes. They also fall in love with each other and decide to be together, right? And that's the optimistic ending of the story, right? And of course, so they guys like Lindelof don't want to believe that, right? That's too close to the American dream, man. That you can be a superhero and have a wife and have an enjoyable life in America. No, that's wrong. That's bad. So let's destroy that completely, and then we'll remake the character of the second Silk Spectre into something she was never remotely like. Make her into this jaded, scowling, hag of a character that, by the way, is now 70 years old, right? She was born in 1955, I believe. Was it 55? No, she was born in 49. Yeah, that's right. The Silk Spectre, the second Silk Spectre, was supposed to have been born in 1949. Which would mean that she is now a 70-year-old FBI woman that can kick the crap out of anyone, right? So, come on. And then, of course, Ozymandias, right? Because Ozymandias has to especially suffer. They weren't going to leave him out. So he has to be turned from the greatest criminal mastermind, maybe one of the greatest ones in the entire history of comics. Maybe, a great one in all of literature, right? There are very few, because he's not a cartoon character, right? He's the idea of what if you really had the world's smartest man and the world's smartest man really wanted to do something like this, and had this plan to bring peace to the world, to save the world from itself. So he's the real version of that, right? And so he's a guy that is, he's in the story, he's not meant to be a hero, and yet he's trying to save the world, right? But he's also clearly someone who is not nearly as morally or ethically perfect as he believes himself to be. It's the classic error of thinking that if you're really smart, which is ironic again because this is a huge SJW error, right? That's if someone is really smart, it means they must be morally better than other people and therefore should be the one in charge of making decisions for everybody else's lives, which is basically what Ozymandias decides he should do in the comic, right? That's a really interesting take on it because he's trying. He believes he's the hero. He's trying to do good things, right? He's trying to save the world, right? It's this or the apocalypse, and so of course in the series you can't let a white man be that character. So instead they reduce him into the comic relief of the show, right? He's this idiotic buffoon living in a castle who's lost his mind. And he's been trapped there for who knows how long, and he's just an idiot, and he's not good at anything because look at how stupid the old boomer white men are, So that guy, he's just there literally to make a mockery of Ozymandias, right? He's not done apparently anything in the last 5 episodes? Is it 6? I don't remember how many it's been now, but basically he's a useless character that they've put there just to grind into the dirt the fact that Ozymandias shouldn't get to be the rich white intelligent male that actually succeeds at something, right? Or something like that, right? It's just so stupid. It's so unbelievably stupid, right? And I would urge you, if you haven't watched it, don't watch it, right? And if you've started watching it, stop watching it if you agree with me on this, right? Like, it's just not worth giving them the viewing numbers, right? As long as the way you're watching it is a way that will benefit them in any way, and watching it on any subscription service will benefit them, don't do it. If you realize that I'm right and that they hate the thing you love and are trying to wreck the thing you love, then you've got to stop. You've got to stop letting them do that, right? And also, that was my main point to you, the audience, right? My main point in the bigger sense is that it doesn't matter because none of this is the canon, right? It's never going to be the canon any more than the last Skywalker or the last couple of Star Wars movies are going to be part of the Star Wars canon. In 200 years' time, nobody's going to remember those. Everyone's going to remember the original trilogy. No one's going to remember this Watchmen series. Everyone's going to remember the comic, right? Because there's a seminal element to it, right? So and especially because these were unapproved works, not of the original creators. And so I guess to close by bringing it back into RPGs, you could say the same thing about what people are trying to do today with D&D, right? With this agenda of SJW entryism, using the excuse of inclusion into the D&D hobby, but also specifically the official D&D products of Wizards of the Coast, right? These people aren't the creators of D&D. Hell, most of them aren't even the real creators of this edition of D&D, right? So they're just wage slaves in a corporation that have decided to be the infiltrating agents for the neo-Marxist Pol Pot style revolution, right? And the authority they have is only the authority people believe that they have. So when you see these guys making powerful declarations about D&D must be this or D&D must be that, just remind everyone that these aren't the people that created D&D. They're not the people that get to decide what D&D is or isn't, any more than this Lindehoff guy gets to decide what Watchmen is. Right? His anti-fan fiction is just that and nothing more. And what, for example, Crawford is doing with D&D is just anti-fan fiction too. That's everything for today. If you like this video, please share it. Please like it. And please share it. And please subscribe to my channel if you haven't before. Although a note, if you've only come here because this said Watchmen and so you're looking at this, most of my other videos on this channel are about role-playing games. And so if you're into role-playing games, you might find them really interesting because many of them are also about the kind of culture wars in role-playing games. But if you're only a Watchmen fan, maybe I'd still love for you to subscribe. But just be forewarned that most of my stuff isn't about Watchmen or comics either. And anyways, share this anywhere you like, especially where you think people will like it, or you think people will get annoyed by it. And if you want to help me out, I do have a Patreon page and a PayPal page, but they're all in the description below. But the best way you can help me out is by buying my products, RPG products like Dark Albion, Lion and Dragon, Cults of Chaos. I've recently had people on Twitter discovering how great Cults of Chaos is. It's a really good source book for creating complete chaos cults. And if you don't want to spend that much money, I also have my RPG Pundit Presents weekly supplement series. We're at issue, I think, 96, 94, 96, I don't remember. But there's like almost 100 of these that you can look through. Again, the link is on the description. RPG Pundit Presents. Small, short source books with either adventures or additional material, items, setting material, random tables, all kinds of stuff. Wild stuff for medieval authentic play, stuff for gonzo weird fantasy play. You can find almost anything there, ranging from 99 cents to I think $4.99 at the most. So it's about what you'd pay in a super chat if we were live streaming. And by buying one of those, you're giving me something, but you're also getting something for yourself, for your role-playing needs. And I'm sure you're going to find at least one, but I would bet quite a few in the list of the different products that I've got that you're going to find useful for your own gaming. So do check it out. Uh-oh, here's Chungus. Well, Chungus is here now, so we know it's time to go. Well, thank you everyone for listening. And currently smoking Moretti Rhodesian plus Blue Boar.